In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the landscape around the Idaho 4 case. And the last few days, I've been focusing on some videos to stir some attention. And the kind of attention that I was looking to stir was more of a fact-finding mission, because I'm starting to see strange things starting to come to fruition around the Brian Kohberger case. And the things that I'm starting to see, I'm not going to go into details on them, but it's starting to paint a picture for me of what the ultimate strategy was in this entire case. And it's interesting. And it's got me to rethinking who the biggest opposition out there is to the truth. And for a long time, and I'm sure to an extent there's still some of that the feds would have disinformation specialists out there and try to manipulate the narrative through mainstream media and through little agents on social media. And while that may happen to an extent, it's becoming more and more clear to me who the real power is behind most of this onslaught. Because it takes a lot of money, probably more money than the feds are willing to put out through a black project, to grease the mainstream morons in the way that they have been greased. And it certainly, when you start to look at the actors in social media, the paid actors, I believe, the operatives, it seems like their destination is not coming from a federal source. I think it's coming from a specific source. And then when you step back and you start to think about it, I mean, who has the capital and the power and the commitment by others to protect an entity like that? And that entity looks to me to be a university. And the person who runs that university happens to be a billionaire. And I'm sure with, the power of a billionaire, you have a lot of contacts. And it seems to me that this has been a long-term strategy of a media and social media onslaught by a power to try to steer a narrative in a certain direction and clear that university from the repercussions that it should have been, that it should have had. And what's really strange is when you start to look around in the social media category, you've got the larger actors that I'm sure are greased, right? They're paid. That's the gray pubes and the drunk chew toy. But then you've got all these little small ones that are just kind of pesky, that just have been around for a long time. And when you start to dive into them, you can clearly see ties from them to the University of Idaho. So it really becomes clear to me what the game is at this stage. And I'm sorry if some of you out there can't see it, but I certainly can, because there's many facts as we start to get into this trial that the prosecution are omitting. I mean, they're going into this thing literally now as the mainstream moron narrative has painted from the beginning. That is literally what they're going into this trial with, their strategy to convict Bryan Kohberger. And it is amazing to me, with all the things that we've learned along the way, they are literally going to try to present just the circumstantial evidence that paints the picture of Bryan Kohberger being a one-offer, even though they know this was a multiple perp crime. I believe at this point, even the judge knows it. But they're going to try to eliminate all of the evidence around that, and they're going to try to take this thing to court as a one-off perpetrator. And even their investigation tells them that's not the case. So you got to ask yourself, why is that? Why would they not just put all the facts out there and try this thing the right way? Well, because if they do that, they know they're going to contradict everything that they set up from the beginning. And if they do that, then it's going to shine a light on what really happened in that little sleepy college town and show the world that that little sleepy college town is not as safe as it looks. So this is one big cut. It's called a CYA strategy by the university. So when you start to look at all these little personalities out there that can't gain any ground, and then you start to look at their ties, it's not to the feds. Their ties are actually to that university. So it has never been more of a mission of mine now to get the truth out than it is this very day, knowing that, because I'm not going to let that happen. This country is not run by unnamed billionaires manipulating everybody's minds to believe a certain thing and then put a guy in prison to cover their butt. That's not what this country is about, and that's what it'll be about if we don't stand up and fight for it. And I will fight now even harder than I fought before. So you get ready. This stuff's fixing to hit ahead, and old Pav's fixing to bring every fact he can possibly bring over the next 3 months before this trial hits. And we're going to do our dangdest to make sure this is a fair trial. The facts go on trial, and people's minds are not going to be brainwashed to the point to where they can't open their heads up to see the evidence in this case when this thing goes to trial. If the truth cannot come out, then we failed as a society. And I'm going to do my part as a citizen of this society to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I've got a video I'll be bringing to you shortly. It's going to be on a key aspect of this case, and then we heard about it in the limine hearing. We still haven't heard a ruling yet from the judge, and it's on vague and undisclosed expert testimony. That is a critical one, because during the trial, you're going to hear, for example, if you watch, like yesterday, they had the opening statements from the Karen Reed case, and you can see how things play out in a case. When the prosecutor gets up, their opening statement is basically they're going to paint the story, paint the picture of the admissible evidence, and they're going to orally tell them what that evidence is going to show them throughout the case. Then the defense attorney gets up, they make their opening statement, and basically their statements are trying to guide the jury to the story that they want them to hear and point out what they feel like the evidence is going to show. Now, in this case, because of these motions in limine, unless the defense is able to make a few connections, one of the things that'll be missing from their opening statement is the fact that on the night in question, our client was not in the King Road neighborhood. He was at a park. So that is a key aspect that they're going to have to get in before the trial, so that opening statement has some teeth in it. But they're also going to have to get the alternate perpetrator evidence in so that during the opening statement, they can paint the narrative, just like in that Karen Reed case, where they can point to somebody else that did it. But the evidence that they're going to be discussing in those opening statements is what the facts show in the case. And a lot of that is based on the expert testimonies. So when you look at the vague and undisclosed expert testimony, that not only comes up during the actual witness stage of the trial, but it's a key component to what the defense and the prosecution say during their opening and closing statements. So we're going to break that one down, see what kind of information we can glean from it, and then we're going to wait for that judge's ruling because that one is important. But in the meantime, please like and subscribe to this channel, post your comments, thoughts, criticisms, and until next time, Pavarotti's out.